Off-season bonanza. Sheep Esports presents. Let's take a look at all of these, leaks that Sheep Esports has presented, and let's, break them down one by one. The LCK, Teddy joining Lion was something that was considered, but Berserker went in the end. I think Berserker probably has a higher potential growth ceiling, and he also experienced in North America. I think that matters. I think Teddy as a player is more of a, like similar to a Sven character. Yeah, it's like he has some old school champions that he really carries games on. I think he's stable, but even on that sense, I was more excited to watch Lazyfield play on DRX. So probably DRX were happy to play with Lazyfield, and then Teddy's joining OK Savings Brian. You also have the rumor of Canyon basically talking with, of course, Hanwha Life. A very important detail about the LCK off-season is the fact that now with Peanut out of the pool, the amount of elite junglers is, of course, really like the pool is just strangled, right? It's there's a lot less of them. So it's natural. Owner already signed for T1, Kaz already on KT, so there's a big fight over Canyon because the next players in line, Kanavi and Tarzan, it seems like they're going to be sticking around in, of course, China. And a big moving piece, I can imagine, if Hanwha Life can secure Canyon, then maybe it incentivizes Viper to stay. But if Genji secure Canyon, maybe there's a big chance then Viper actually goes to China, unites together with Knight and Kanavi and home, and they make a massive roster, unless then Knight, of course, wants to join to Bilibili, because Knight holds all the keys in China. And considering the timing of the off-season, and now you have, of course, the crazy system that we saw in terms of the bidding system, Knight is the type of player that if you want to get him, you need to do a max bid. I wonder what it's going to come out of it. But considering Viper's strength in this off-season, he is a player that can actually wait. He has the privilege of being able to wait. There's no org that can be like, yo, if we don't sign, we're going to be signing this player. And he's going to be like, huh, comedian. I am also intrigued to see what happens with pays. That's going to be very, very interesting. And then, from Canyon's side, I wonder if these so-called, there were rumored pay cuts that he took to play on Gen.G, maybe, joining Hanwha Life, this is him recovering for those pay cuts. I do think that Gen.G will have a more competitive roster because of their mid lane situation, and also they have a very, very strong bot lane core. So the incentive isn't massive on the competitive side. But if you're Canyon, you join Hanwha Life, even though you've had a very, very weak, couple of months, you do have the opportunity here to, also hurt Gen.G while joining Hanwha Life, because I don't know who Gen.G would take in the jungle position if this is something that, they want to go for. The LEC. So Vladi was the one holding the keys for a long time for a lot of teams. G2 Esports. G2 Esports is expected to keep its current roster. Casper, Inspired, Busio, Allen were also, interested in joining G2, but G2 showed no interest. So here, the community, and I think a lot of G2 fans, I saw at least at the discourse around this, people said that this is surprising, this is a bad move, this is a bad decision. You got to understand a couple of things here, guys. First, in Europe, German labor laws, contracts are ironclad. If you have signed players, you have to pay them. You don't get away with benching clauses where you can in most cases sue and get your full salary. They are preventing you from doing your job and don't want to pay you. That is a conflict that in Germany, as a employee, you have a lot of defenses in place. So with that in mind, from a money side, it doesn't make a lot of sense to sign on players for a long-term project and then, of course, benching them because it, of course, cuts into then a money pool. And I imagine that the players like Inspired and Busio are not players that are going to be, of course, cheap. Additionally, G2 had a decent amount of success, all things considered. They ramped up. They beat FlyQuest at the World Championship. FlyQuest was, of course, dysfunctional. But you could clearly see improvement and a trajectory that was, of course, very pleasant and nice to see. They were obviously getting better and better, and I think that the conversation between Skumon versus Inspired, keep in mind that G2 as a core has played together for quite some time. Inspired is a very dominant player. He wants to play his way, his own way, and I'm sure that the level that these players are on, that they will make it work regionally and they would be super, super good. But then the question is if there would be any potential clashes. You know, that's something that you need to kind of elaborate on because G2's core has been the same and they've always added now a rookie jungler. That has been, of course, the meta with this G2 system in place. And I do think that Broken Blade, Caps, and the coaching staff, they have a clear vision for how they want to play the game. And I do think that Skumond has now been molded into fitting that vision. And while you might think that Inspired is a better player now, and I think that's the right thing to think, I also think that disrupting what you have for a potential risk, where the reward might not be super, super great, I do think that it makes sense for them to continue with Skumond. Busio versus Labrov, that's a little bit of a different conversation because Busio joining KC, I think, hurts you and makes KC a massive contender. And at the same time, you know, Labrov as a player has a lot of experience. I just think it comes back to the same thing. I'm certain that G2 internally probably built a lot of credit and got a lot of credit from their players in regards to saying like, oh, we're sticking with this roster, we're continuing with this roster through to 2026. I think it makes sense because I do believe that 2027, that off-season leading into 2027, will be the big one. I think that is where there will be a massive battlefield. If we don't hear the news at any point in time that KC have re-signed Kalist and extended his contract, that is where I think the G2 will make their big money moves and they will restructure their roster. And I think that this year, they have something super strong and they're going to evaluate what they want to, of course, retain coming into that 2027 season. But I think the G2 sticking together with their current roster is massive. And then there was an additional detail that wasn't mentioned here, but there was some talk about Aiming wanting to join G2. Like, Aiming as a player is a regular season merchant. I don't remember a series in playoffs where he played well, if I'm going to be honest. His World Championship bids were always insanely disappointing. Remember the one back, like, of course, we had the one last year as an example, where Aiming, of course, in the regular season carried with Zeri and Kaiser and so forth and Ezreal. But then when we got to the World Championship, the meta shifted and he just was non-existent. I don't think that Aiming is a player that you want to bring over. I don't think it makes any sense at all. I think that the regular season, he can be decent. He can compete with some of the best, but I don't think that he has a winner's mentality. And at the same time, you know, there's also, it's like from a PR's perspective, I just think this guy is a nightmare, you know, like aiming 15. That's all I can say. We continue. Movistar KOI, they've mentioned that they want to, of course, build out a cheeky little academy, which is nice that Melz is going to build. I think buying into that vision more and more is super cool. They are also bringing on Alfari as an assistant coach. Zeph is leaving and joining KC. I think Zeph is a very powerful force. I think everything I've heard about Zeph is good. So good for KC on bringing him on to support the Reaper coaching staff, which is very nice. Ibai in the stream, basically the translated thing that I read, Ibai mentioned that Elioya, Alvaro, and Georgia Pune have been, extended, which is super good. I think that's the core of the team. In my mind, I think Supa and Midwin. Supa is incredibly inconsistent, and I think that Midwin, of course, as a player, also incredibly inconsistent. They have high highs, but also incredibly low lows. And I do think that the performance of these individual players being so sporadic is what is holding back a potential breakthrough in the mechanical ceiling of this team. And what was implied was that Supa and Midwin have now been told, it's like, you guys need to do better in these departments. And if this is your chance to do so this year, otherwise we're going to shop around and look for more. And I think that's based. And as you can see here, their contract renewals in 2026 depend on their performance. I think that's based. I think that the way KOI presented this information and the rationale, I think, has been super, super good. I did wish, I said like a couple of months ago that I really wish that they got Mithy to solve their mid-game issues, but we will see. We will see. I think Alfari as a player coach has been effective when he worked with, of course, Broken Blade, so that's super nice. I wonder how much of an impact Barney can have as a player, a coach on a bigger scale than just top lane, because that's going to be a new experience for, of course, Alfari. We look at Team Vitality as well. Team Vitality, Humanoid, we talked about already. Naknako being the main pillar of this year's project. Humanoid, I think, I repeat, I said it in the video already. Humanoid, at his worst, was a top 3 mid laner in the league. At his worst. And all of those criticisms that you have towards Humanoid, you know, dying stupidly, playing like in a lazy fashion sometimes, you know, looking quite bad in some games. I can understand that criticism. I definitely can. But at the same time, here you have a mid laner that consistently was top 3 throughout his entire career in the region. He is one of the few guys that can compete internationally and be good enough to play internationally. He has the capacity to be the best in the league, historically, right? And now you have a situation where he has been removed from the previous team where a dynamic has really sunk in, and he has an opportunity to reinvent himself. Similar to like Jojo Pune. It's like Jojo Pune sucked ass on C9. I think anyone with an eye knew that on the next team, he's going to do a lot better. I think circumstances and details about your circumstance really, really matters. I think that's important to highlight. And I do think that Humanoid's resurgence here can be very impactful. I think if there's a world where Vitality break into top 3 and qualify to a World Championship, I think everyone's going to sit there and say, damn, Humanoid was a massive signing. And here he's reuniting with some of his old homies that he thrived under. So I think that the Humanoid signing makes a lot of sense. And I think that from a money side, I don't think that Humanoid is expensive. So there's that. You're not signing him and locking your team up for the next couple of years because of how much money you invested into him. This is a signing that probably, based on the value of Humanoid, was probably quite cheap. So I think this is massive. I think this is really, really good. We have also Danush, Arvindir Fisher. I think Danush's track record has been really good, like big and vitality. I think this is a player, this is a coach that has a very, very good eye for talent. That's what his record shows. It's also very likely that Kazi and Fleshy stays. And it's funny, you know, we had 2 coaches that basically were supposed to be fired or resign after this off-season, but I don't think BDS should change from Striker. I think Striker's vision, like Striker is BDS in my mind. And at the same time, you know, Vitality in a position where their current coaching staff have contracts. They've been in a situation like that before with different coaches, and they need to just stick through and see where they land, you know. All right. Let's continue. So Navi, Poby. God bless. Poby gets to play. I think Poby did as good as he could in Fnatic, honestly. As good as he could. And really pissed me off. You know what pissed me off? All these people that didn't watch Poby play talk about how Poby's gonna do. Like why? Why is that a thing? The only argument people were like, yeah, I played against him 4 years ago. He wasn't good. It's like, yeah, he was like 15 or some shit. That really, really pissed me off. It's like, it's so easy to not be intellectually lazy. I just go pull up some of his games. And then, like, I watched like 10, 15 games of Poby, and I said, he understands the beats of the game, has very, very good base timers, and he's always on time together with Vincenzo the jungler. It wasn't that complicated. It's like, what does he do best on? He does best on the mid laners that get prio and push and roam. I was like, okay, cool, nice, good job, Yamato. You don't like. It was so intellectually dishonest. Like, yeah, he subbed them for T1 and they went 1-8. It's like, yeah, bro. He got thrusted into a situation where T1 was already underperforming and he has to replace Faker on the team. Like, what are we saying? What are we saying? I'm very happy that Poby gets another shot. I think he did really well on Fnatic, all things considered. But keep in mind, he entered a burning building. He's a firefighter. He's a hero. He's a damn hero, Poby. So I'm really excited to see Poby on the team, considering as well that they signed The Rock, right? The Rock from KC. The Rock already has a lot of experience working with Korean players, so I'm sure that he is going to leverage that experience. And the roster that Navi is putting together, it's like they're trying to find their franchise players, you know? They're trying to find which player is going to stay there for long. And I really like this project. I think it's a really cool project. I think this is a really, really cool project, in my opinion. Let's see where they're going to land with, of course, the super position. We will see. They secured Paros. I misread the sentence. They secured Paros. So they got Paros, Poby, Mainter, Rylek, and Hansam D. Well, that's a very interesting rookie roster. You know, they might struggle, you know, in the beginning and so forth. But considering how KCB did with the Rock, I think this is a fun project that Navi have kind of put together. We shall see. Team Heretics are promoting Tracen, I believe. Fnatic and Team Heretics almost agreed on the buyout amount for Razork. It was up to the player to decide, but refused. Interesting. So now Fnatic are going to stick with Razork, and he chose not to. Considering how good Shield was for Team Heretics, it is surprising. Team Heretics is making some changes, like moving Flacket around. They added the coach Hedon, and now they've chosen Ice over Flacket, and Exa Kick as well. Ice had a pretty good tenure, I think, on BDS, and I think brings you like firepower. But we shall see. We shall see. So they have Shield, Tracen, and of course now Ice. I'm kind of intrigued now. What is the situation with Team Heretics mid lane? Because Camilo is not sticking around. Maybe there's something that I'm missing here. Maybe I'm going to check at the end if there was a post or something. Team BDS, new AD carry Paduk, the South Korean marksman previously KT challenges in LCS, and also a discussion with Fnatic early in the off-season. Paduk was BDS top choice. I think Paduk, from what I've seen, pretty damn solid player. You know, nothing more to add there. The BDS is now complete, and then Bukata is sticking around, Striker sticking around, and then of course Nuke. Rooster is also sticking around, and then Trimby has also joined the team as support, with Rafael Targamas Krabe being their second option. I think this is an interesting mix of like veterancy. I don't know if this is going to change my opinion of where BDS lands. I feel like these are like side grades, and I do think that fundamentally something needs to change. And maybe Trimby can bring that to the table. I think that if this team finds any new success, I do think it's because of the added spin of Tromboner here. So Fnatic have considered making changes. They tried to sell Oscar to several teams, but no deal was reached. He could end up staying with the main roster next year or moving to the bench. Other options include Empiros and, of course, Shelfmade. Mihile was at one point considered, was no longer part of Fnatic's shortlist. Boipo was also a discussion with the organization, but was never seen as a real option. And then you have Razork already mentioned, and then Vladi was the one just waiting and then just sealing the deal. So with Vladi joining Razork, a big question mark is, of course, the bot lane. On the bot side, Exa is possible for Fnatic, with Elias Lip remains the other leading candidate. The team also held talks with Paduk. I guess the main question is, like, do Upset and Razork want to play together? Because they have a lot of history together. They play together a lot at this point, and maybe like the implication was that Upset versus Razork was like the negotiation, and then Vladi came in and he said, "I want to play with Razork," and he was the swaying vote. So let's see what they are, going to explore. There was also mention of Piero. I have no idea who Lospa is. I've seen Piero play. I kind of think it would be cool to see Piero in the mix. In my opinion, we shall see where Fnatic lands. I don't think it looks too bad. It seems like, considering where Fnatic started, the fact that they have little money to swing around. They have players that need to get rid of their contracts, need to get rid of their contracts, and also that they don't have that reputational staying power. I do think that it put Fnatic in a very, very tough spot. Grabs wants to rebuild his vision on Fnatic, and I think it's good and important that they give him the keys to do so. But I did think that this year would be a very, very slow year for Fnatic, where they need to hopefully rebuild their academy system and at the same time, slowly find the next big players. But I do think that it seems like Fnatic is going to land somewhere reasonable. I don't think that Fnatic will be in the discussion of being in the top 3, because that's KC, G2, and of course KOI. But I do think that Fnatic have landed somewhere reasonable, I just think it's a question for Fnatic to build a strong foundation into the future. Fnatic might sound rough because for Fnatic fans, it might feel like you've been in a rebuild for the last 5 years ever since you lost Caps, but this is a real definition of a rebuild, you know, because now truly the humanoid Razork dynamic is now over. Even though they removed humanoid and put in Poby in the middle of the season, keep in mind that doing so in the middle of the season still has remnants of the past. So now finally Fnatic is going to rebuild, and that's just what they gotta do. The other orgs have too much of a head start in terms of reputation, in terms of money, in terms of current contracts and so forth, and also in terms of namesake. We continue. Giants could retain his roster, showed interest in Jackie's, Navi, and then Isma. Discussions with Fnatic regarding Isma. I think that basically Fnatic are going to be mentioned with any jungle here, because in the end it's just a question of you know, if they sell Razork, what are their options? I think this is just a natural thing to do. They tried to get Razork from Fnatic, and then Fnatic tried to get Jun, but that's just noise in the end. Nothing came out of it. Full roster for KC, we already mentioned it. I think KC has already won this offseason big time by getting Busio. I think that's a massive deal. I think that's a really big one. In my mind, I think that's a big upgrade. Putting him next to Kalist, I think they complement each other really well. Kiahu, I think, is a solid talent. I saw a couple of his games in the LCK. I think he's a solid talent. And then Kana has resigned, which of course is super massive. And with that context, Reaper's coming through, as of course the experience and the Korean angle. Reaper the last 2 years on C9 weren't the greatest in terms of their finishes and so forth. So hopefully Reaper can, find his flair again, because historically, before his time, before he went to Japan, he had a pretty, interesting and strong track record there. So this is going to be a big one. Then KC ultimately decided to bring in Quentin Zeph as well to the team. I think that's a really solid signing as well. For me, everything I've heard from Zeph and from my interactions with Zeph, he seems to be a very strong coach with a strong head on his shoulders. And I think if for some reason, if the Reaper thing doesn't work out as him being the head coach, I do think that Zeph can easily step into the head coach position. I do think that Quentin would be ready for that. Los Ratones. According to sources close to Sheep Esports, Jacob YamatoCannon maybe will join Los Ratones as the head coach, but only for the winter split. He won't be alone, as his assistant coach will be with Kevin Shaves Tolman. The two have already worked together at Casey and Fnatic and know each other well. Shave will also reunite with Nemesis and Reckless, whom he previously coached during their time at Fnatic. I do think, considering like the short term of this project, I think that you want to bring in someone that has experience and also pre-established like relationships with the players, because you don't have a lot of time to build rapport. And I know a lot of people want to judge Yamato for his result on KC. And, I think in terms of how short-term driven everything is, I think it's understandable. But I want to point out that after Yamato was fired, the team also went 2-7 in spring. They rebuilt the whole roster. He only got, a couple of weeks to work with the team. And additionally, like looking at Yamato's track record, I do think if you look back from 2015 to 2022, there's a lot of like gems in there, a lot of diamonds in the rough that Yamato managed to create. So I think from Yamato's side, it's exciting for him to be working with both, Nemesis and Reckless, because those are two players that kind of got away from him. When he joined Fnatic, Nemesis was then already on the exit, and also Reckless was deciding between G2 and of course Fnatic, where he ultimately chose to go to G2. So it's a lot of things are falling into place here in terms of connecting the past and what could have been. And I think the Shaves connection with Nemesis and Reckless is also a massive one, and I'm sure that Kate will also be very involved in the team and making sure that everything goes smoothly. It's going to be a fun project to pay attention to. Let's take a look at the LCS. We have Quad Masu retained for FlyQuest and Whipple would not be their starting top laner. I wonder, I thought that Whipple would jungle for FlyQuest, but it turns out they are going for Griffin, replacing Inspired. I don't know if Whipple is going to be a part of the coaching staff then, and I wonder if they're going to, I wonder what's going to happen with Whip. I feel bad for Whip, because obviously he tanked his own reputation, and I think that makes him a very, very, a lot less valuable here in this off-season. And I don't think that Whip was a bad guy or anything. I think he just spoke his thoughts out loud and realized what he said was really, really stupid, and he's trying his best to repent. I hope that he gets a shot, to show what he's capable of, because I do think that in terms of how he played, it did seem like it also affected him, which I think is normal. I hope he finds his path to redemption, is what I'm trying to say. All right. With a large budget, so Lion, a lot of money apparently. They have 3 owners that have a shit ton of cash, is what I was told. They have Saint, and now they won the bidding war for Inspire against Team Liquid. And then Inspire will be the highest paid player in the LCS, depending on the bonuses. And then he could even be the highest paid player in the West, surpassing Rasmus Caps Winter. At the ADC position, Berserker, which is a comeback, and then Zambudo in the top lane, which is a solid signing, cool. Impact was rumored, but will not be confirmed player. In the end, the Canadian Vitality will finally get to play in the LCS after facing visual issues last year with Lion. And then Isles. I think it's support. You gotta just plug and play what you got. And then you have Rainover coming over from Team Liquid, who also was a Karmine Corp candidate. So Leon is shaping up to be interesting. I do think that in regards to the top 3, if we look at it for what it is, C9, Lion, FlyQuest, even Team Liquid, I guess, should be in that conversation. There's going to the top 4 is going to be very interesting. You have 3 spots, 2 MSI slots, so of course there's a little bit more to fight for in comparison to the LTA business, but I do think that LCS is shaping up to be interesting. Even though they lost some key players, I think they should be very happy that they got to keep Inspired. So for Team Liquid, they won the bidding war for Quid. They're keeping Yon and KoJJ, and then Yose Diodo will be the jungle. I really thought they're gonna figure out the river thing. I was planting that seed early about the fact that they're gonna figure out the river situation. So I spread this rumor. I was so sure. I'm sorry, Team Liquid, if I put a lot of strain on you guys, but I thought that you guys are gonna figure out the military situation. I really had faith. But maybe they did and could have, and they still wanted to go for Jose Diodo. Maybe. I'm not so familiar with Jose Diodo's level of play, so there's that. And now they are looking to get also Morgan. They tried out Castle and Clear, so Morgan seems to be the guy. Morgan, I think he's a standard of a top. I see him as a worse version of Kana. He's just a standard, very, very standard top laner. You expect him to play a Renekton, a Gnar, and an Aatrox. He's very, very standard. I don't think this is a super hype signing in my opinion, but we shall see. Morgan has had some games where he can compete with the best on certain champions, so let's see if he can replicate that regionally. C9, Loki left the team for personal issues, and APA has been chosen to replace him. I think APA, you pull up the ladder right now, the boy is rank 1. I think APA is a hard worker, and I do think that this is the type of player that should get another shot to work in a different environment. I do think that in terms of some of the issues that C9 faced, I do think that APA could be the type of player to maybe support Blabber better than Loki. I think Loki was a fantastic talent, and I'm really, really sad to see him go, for sure. But I do think that APA, Blabber, that synergy, maybe we can go back to the golden era of Blabberoni. And with I will dominate at the helm, my boy, I will dominate at the helm. I do think that C9 is super exciting. I have my biases, but either way, it's I will dominate in the mix. In-person coaching, it's that's gonna pull in eyeballs. It's gonna be the fans and the haters. It's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be damn beautiful. And then we will see how they can address what I would call like C9. In my opinion, they choked the playoffs. So let's see how Owl Dominate is going to navigate that. That's going to be super important. New GM for Dignitas, new GM for Dignitas. This is the man that was on CLG and NRG. So let's see what they can cook up over there. I think the previous GM was the guy who just loved. He was the Heroes of the Storm guy. It's just the memes kind of wrote themselves. This guy's toast. Castle has been locked in. Kaiser, they're looking for bot lane options in Kaiser, Mihile, and Komi. All right. Okay. Sentinels, Darkwings, Rahel, and Huhi. Okay. And then Shopify, they managed to secure Zini. Zini is one of the most high prospects in this offseason, man. One of the most high prospects in this offseason. And I wonder how he's going to do on this team. Like, I thought that Zini had, like, LCK offers. I thought he had LEC offers. So it's very surprising to see him on Shopify Rebellion. Maybe the offseason wasn't as hot as, the community wanted to make it out to be. Because in the end, I'm just paying attention to what's going on in the community. And I'm trying to make sure that I don't reveal any, personal information that I know about what's going on, I think that's what it is, Anyhow, I guess that's the off-season bonanza. I think the LCK thing is super interesting. What's going to happen with the jungle? But I imagine Cannon is going to land on Gen G. I really think so. There's that. Thank you very much for watching. If you made it to the end, bless you and bless your face. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.